Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Melisa, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Let's just jump straight into it. What got you out of consulting and then into consulting again, but on your own?
Amazing. So good. Thanks for having me. I like to call it I became an accidental consultant. I think as many of us do. I was responsible for running all of the professional services organization at a tech startup, and had a huge team working for me when my husband had a career opportunity that was in Hawaii. So this was almost 14 years ago. And it wasn't at that time easy to run a business unit that far away. And so I resigned. And when I resigned, the CEO asked me if I would stay on as a consultant. The thought had never crossed my mind. If I had a more entrepreneurial mindset at the moment, in that period of time, I would have thought of this proactively myself. But luckily, the CEO had the forethought to ask me to stay on as a management and strategy consultant. And so that my former employer became my first client, as it does for many of us. And I've never looked back since then.
I couldn't do remotely the function that you were working at the time, but consultant worked. So was the assignment a bit different, or how did you approach this?
Yeah, it was different because at the time I was managing a team of, 50 or 60 people. And so when I switched over to consulting, I became an individual contributor in that sense. I was working with the executive team and some of their clients, which I could do remotely because I wasn't managing the staff and working with, I wasn't working directly with the clients to deliver anymore. I was working now with my client, which was my former company. So that's why it worked out really well for me and was really a soft landing from changing from an executive into running my own business and starting to learn all of the things that come with that.
Just to follow up on one of the things that you mentioned, a lot of consultants become consultants by accidental consultants.
Yeah.
I'm reflecting about all the consultants I've met in my life, and very few of them, their dream job as a kid was to become a consultant. That is true. But it has a certain appeal when we start entering into the corporate world. So making that shift then and focusing on what you do now, what is the problem that you solve, Melisa?
Yeah, I work so maybe a little bit to bridge that gap. So I became an independent consultant myself. And as I mentioned, my former employer was my first client. And then I started realizing that I could create a business out of this, or that at least I could acquire more clients to generate, income for myself. And so that's what I started doing. I was working with startups, helping them scale. And how it evolved really was I was working with these clients and helping them on their operations side, put in process and people and technology to scale those organizations. But at the same time, what I noticed is that the leaders of those organizations were having so many challenges with working effectively together, with being effective as the organization was growing, really growing ahead of the organization. And so I did a lot of coaching, informal coaching of those executives on the side, a lot of advisory essentially and coaching. And so that's the part that I loved the most. It was a lot less of the day-to-day and helping, put these systems and processes and people in place, and so much more of the leader aspect of it. And so that's how I started bridging into coaching and did a lot of executive coaching. I still do a little bit of executive coaching just to always, be able to be a consultant myself and know what it's like to sell consulting, not just theoretically, consistently doing it myself. But also what I started to realize is that so many people are coming to me saying, well, how can I be an independent consultant? How can I do what you're doing? How can I have the flexibility? How can I, really get to pick and choose who I work with? And so that's what the evolution was. And I'm so passionate about helping other consultants, whether they became an independent consultant accidentally like I did or more purposefully, but helping them to get to the place where they're not thinking about their business as how do I just land the next client or how do I replace my corporate income, but much more about how do I purposefully and intentionally create a business that will sustain my financial goals, my flexibility goals, the type of work that I want to do and feel fulfilled doing, and to protect that autonomy. So that's a long answer to your question, but that's how I bridged into starting to help and what I do now, which is helping independent consultants who have already started a business and, or started consulting, I should say, and want to transform that into a business, to be really successful in doing the things that they're not as competent at, especially for themselves, right? A lot of us are really good at client delivery. That's what we're at, what we do as consultants. That's really our bread and butter. But when it comes to marketing and lead generation and business development and sales, that's the piece that I find is a gap for most independent consultants, especially when our product is ourselves, or we think it is. It's not, but we could talk about that too.
And I want to get into that. I want to follow up on how do you help an independent consultant who is maybe not being full-time into that yet, and who is looking at really developing their practice. I love this because we work with a lot of consultants, maybe a bit more advanced in their practice, in the sense of they have the referrals coming in, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 employees. But so how do you go from you're still working corporate, you're doing some consulting gig on the side, but you want to go full-time into this? What do you typically help those independent consultants achieve, and how do you do that?
Yeah. For the most part, I work with consultants who have already left corporate and have landed a couple of clients and are ready to make this, they know that this is what they want to do. The advice that I would give earlier stage is this is truly a decision that you need to make. This is not, I'm going to try this, or I hope that this works. There is a lot of you get tested a lot in running a business. Things don't always go the way that you think they will, or you might not generate as much revenue as you think you will, as quickly as you might, or a project might fall through. There's so much of that requires resiliency and mindset work. And so as you're thinking about, if you're someone in the spot where you haven't yet left corporate, the key to me that I've found in the work that I've done with those individuals, which again isn't my core focus, but is really making a decision. Because if you're constantly comparing the two things and saying, well, should I stay here? Is it more stable, or should I do this? It's more flexible. And you're constantly pitting them against each other. You end up just in a lot of indecision and second guessing. So if you are someone who's doing this on the side, it's really all about making a decision, sticking with it, giving yourself a deadline, and then figuring out how to make it work, not asking your question, will it work? Yeah.
How do you get those consultants who are now full-time on this and having a few clients? How do you get them to find you? Basically, the question is how do you market yourself, brand yourself, and so that the consultants listening to us can learn from it and potentially adopt the same methodology? How do you brand yourself right now?
Yeah, maybe a little story here, but when I was in corporate, I thought that the marketing department was a waste of money, and I told them that too.
Classic.
Right? I really I placed no value in marketing. And so then to come out and start, I know, right? I love marketing now, which is so weird. The two things, when I was in corporate, I had a lot of success in delivery and operations, but when it came to marketing and sales, I was constantly at one point the CEO called me sales repellent because I would, I would go as a subject matter expert to these sales calls and be really honest with the potential client about what would work and what wouldn't work and that type of thing. So nonetheless, I think that's important background to share because I didn't come into running my business with any kind of marketing and sales, capabilities beyond those stories that I just shared. It wasn't number one, my skill set, or number two, what I like doing. And so what I've learned over time and actually come to love both marketing and sales and the whole process of running a business is, and really leaned into, is how do I create inbound interest? And that was my main driving focus. And so to do that, what I've started off doing is really twofold: speaking and thought leadership. And so from a speaking perspective, I asked myself the question of who has already amassed my ideal clients. And I went out and found those organizations that have already amassed my ideal clients and had an audience. And then I knew that, and then I looked and saw that they would do things like webinars or podcast interviews like we're doing right now. And then I would make a relationship with them and offer them free speaking. I would make it easy for them to say yes by identifying gaps in their content that I could fill in, and make it so easy for them to just invite their audience and then do the mechanics of it. And I would provide all of the content. And from that, I've been able to build my email list. I've been able to build my reputation. I have my own podcast now. I think I record episode 246 today. So it's been a week. It's a weekly podcast. So it's been a long endeavor, which I absolutely love. That ability to share perspectives, different stories and make it more normal, that people understand that running a business is hard. And so what are some of the techniques to make it easier? And then from all of that, I also focus on list building. So I focus on, when I'm on a podcast or when I'm on my own podcast, what value can I offer to the audience that then would want them to go take that assessment that I've created or download a toolkit that I've built to give them something valuable, and also to then start having the ability to have a direct relationship with those listeners.
Thank you a lot. So it turns out you don't hate marketing as much now, Melisa, it seems.
No, I love it.
So two things that I want to double down on here. The first one is authority building through content and long tail valuable content, meaning there is a whole strategy around, okay, how do I create podcast episodes? How do I appear on relevant podcasts? How do I create articles, potentially video for YouTube? But all this was bearing in mind my ICP, their pain points, and their desired outcome, so that when they consume my stuff, they will actually not only perceive me as an authority, but start implementing the solutions and be like getting some results from it. That's key. Yeah. And then the second pillar is list building, right? It's great to distribute content. It's great to be seen as a thought leader out there, but invite people to take a next step, right? A small commitment, not book a call so that I can sell you something, but like, hey, take this scorecard assessment like you do have, or like download this ebook, or like check out this private community that I have. And they need to take a small step, which is give you their email address, give you their contact details so that you can nurture them. And that works for any consulting, really. And the people I hear often, lead magnets are dead in 2025. No, bad lead magnets are dead. If you manage to come up with a valuable lead magnet that will serve your audience, you will actually get leads. And those leads will build goodwill towards you, and they will be more likely to buy from you. So I like how you've nailed that down. Yeah. How do you go from this to making people cross the finish line? So clearly you have marketing nailed to a T. How do you go from, okay, I'm not a stranger to the consulting world anymore. They know me. They are solution aware. They are problem aware. How do you get them to work with you? SOW, letter of engagement, we rock and roll.
Right. What I love to do, and for myself, but also help clients to figure out, is the overall prospect to client journey. what does it look like? So if we took an example, I was working with a client last week, and she is a consultant, and she does a lot of speaking. So very similar to what we're talking about right now. She does a lot of speaking. And so what the first mistake that I often see when consultants are speaking is they offer maybe a book a call with me or reach out if you want to talk. Is there a call to action at the end of the talk? And that is just simply not compelling enough. And so, really, for first and foremost, when you think about that overall journey, to your point about the lead magnet, thinking about when I reverse engineer, what is the service that I want to be selling? I call it the you get your foot in the door service. So what might it be to come in as a consultant, for example, and do some strategy work, high level strategy work with a client, or maybe coming in and doing some kind of a diagnostic or an assessment, getting your foot in the door, starting to build some relationship and value for that particular client, as an example. So when you think about getting your foot in the door, then you start reverse engineering backwards. What is the prospect to client journey to that spot? So if you're now back in that speaking example where someone's just becoming aware of you, then you're offering something that relates to the ultimate get your foot in the door offer. Like if it was a strategy, a couple of week strategy engagement, then you might be offering a high level strategy assessment call at the end of your talk, so that it's something that's valuable, that they know why they're getting on the call. They know that it's something that they want, and it's related to your service, but you're not selling them anything. You're just initiating that relationship and starting to understand that potential client better. And then you know what the next step is that you might offer to them. Some of them might say, that's great for now. Others might say, can you help me understand how you could help me implement this or deepen it? And so then you would say, something to the effect of, great, the next step of my process is that we'll do a discovery and dive deeper in here so they can understand what you're looking for, figure out if I might be a good fit as the consultant, and then build up a proposal for you if it would be a good fit. And so mapping out that whole journey is what I found to be so important, because a lot of times we just do things because we think we should, like posting on LinkedIn, without an overarching strategy. And we don't think about how we want those potential clients to walk through the process, ideally.
It's a lot. Let me hit you with a curveball here, Melisa,
good.
linked to one of the recent episodes that you released. What about the let me think about it? How do you approach that from like your sales cycle, but also how consultants should approach this? Like, give me the substance of it.
Yeah, there's several answers to this. If we start with how I handle it, and this is definitely not the way that they teach us in the textbooks. But I don't do it that way. The opposite way, which is, if someone wants to think about it, I'm always curious. Well, what does that mean? And ask them questions. What do you need to think about? Are there other people that you need to, talk with this through? What kinds of ways are you going to talk with them about it? Out of pure curiosity, not quote unquote objection handling, which when I first started selling, and it was abysmal, it was like a 1% close rate. I told you I was bad at sales. It was because I was trying to do it the right way, and I was trying to handle these objections that sound so antiseptic and hard. And when I just decided to let go of all of those rules and talk to people like they were a human and be really curious about what their problems were, and quite frankly, apply a lot of my consulting skills to the sales process to really understand what the problem is, why it's a problem, what they want instead, why they want that, why they haven't had it yet. And ultimately, if they say they need to think about it, being curious about what that means, but also just being willing to let it go. And honestly, my thought process here is that I am now so good at generating leads. I have an abundance of leads. And so I don't need to go I don't need to go talk any one person into this by doing a hard sale. Because at the end of the day, I've found when I have done that in the past, when I'm trying to figure all of this out, those clients weren't the best clients because they were kind of always second guessing, should I have done this or not? And so that's my perspective on it. And it's taken a long journey to get here to the point of having more demand than I can handle, but it's certainly possible for consultants to do that and then get themselves into a place where it doesn't really matter at the end of the day if you close any one deal or not.
Yeah. One of the things that I learned during my PricewaterhouseCoopers days was the following. So the partner who taught me everything was like, Guillaume, there are two types of consultants. There are the hunters and the farmers. And it was like, I'm a hunter. I love the smell of fresh blood in the morning. I love to go after new business. That's my job.
Yeah.
And it was like, the partners bringing the most money in are the farmers, the ones who are able to take that initial engagement, over deliver, and then transform it into a multi-layered, multi-year project that's going to feed other teams within PwC. Those are the ones who go the fastest and make the most money. So whilst you're coaching consultants, how do you approach retention? Like once you get an engagement, you got people to cross the finish line because it was the right time for them. I think that's also the thing about the let me think objection. Only 3% of the market is ready to buy, and we are trying to sell to like only those. But most of them are going to buy, but maybe in 6, 12, 24 months.
That's right.
Closing the parenthesis. Once you close those deals, how do you keep them engaged, retain them, and continue to deliver value over time, all whilst being able to make them pay a fee? How do you approach this?
Yeah. I love thinking about it back to the client journey, right? What does it look like? What is that initial get your foot in the door offer? And then what does it look like to continue to work with that client in different capacities? It might be some combination of execution and advisory, or some, kind of situational scenarios where you're able to help that client, depending on, what is going on in their organization. So building out that entire client journey, not just from the point where you've landed the first engagement, but also what does it look like ideally with your very best client. Sometimes we design things of, well, I wonder what might happen, or I wonder what will happen most of the time, or what's the lowest common denominator even, versus no, this is what I want to design my client journey around, that ideal client, the most amazing client, and building all of that out so that way, okay, when my policy when we are halfway through the engagement, we might start talking about what might a future engagement look like, or does it make sense to be introduced to another business unit? Not because we're not wanting to deliver the value to that client and the work that we're doing, but from the perspective of how could this be valuable to the client itself? How could it be valuable for them to zoom out and look at a broader perspective, for example, or a perspective further down the line than where they're at right now, which is for most of our clients in the weeds, in some form or fashion. So I always like to look at the client journey, and then also how can it be valuable to the client, not because I want the business.
This brings a lot of fruits, because one particularity that you have is that you've collected a lot of video testimonials from your clients. And the reason I'm mentioning this is consultants struggle with this because their clients don't necessarily like to advertise the fact that they had to hire an external consultant to begin with, but it's also always encompassing lots of like private data, sensitive information. But it's a deadly weapon to have like video testimonials of your clients, not like some shady, name dots, first name of whatever, surname and whatsoever, but like video testimonial with full name, with link to the company. This showcases proof, and this removes any doubt that you've been able to obtain results for people like the one that you're trying to advertise to. So how do you go about collecting those testimonials, and what can consultants learn from it to be able to do the same?
Yeah, you make a good point. For a lot of consultants, this is a challenge because of the corporate policies and, of the companies that they're working with. But rather than just writing it off and saying, well, this isn't something that works for my type of client because they're in this industry or this kind of rule, whatever, then you might as well ask, One of my friends who was in sales in corporate a long time ago would always say, ask for the order, ask for the order. It still goes through my mind all the time. Ask for the order. In this case, ask for the testimonial, right? All they can say is no. All they can say is no. And so asking for that, and it might be toward the end of the engagement, or it might be while you're negotiating and you make some concession. You might say, listen, I'll be willing to make this concession, but would you in turn be open to providing a video testimonial, if and when we finish the engagement successfully? So thinking about it from that perspective, because for the most part, I find that consultants write this off because it can be a challenge in a corporate setting. The other thing that I might say, and this might be contrarian to Guillaume, but we'll go for it. Let's see what you think. I find that oftentimes consultants who run a really valuable sales process, high quality sales process, don't need testimonials, don't need references, because at the end of the day, when you come in and you meet an organization and a leader who has a challenge, and you're able to demonstrate your capabilities and your expertise through the quality of questions you're asking them, through the blind spots that you're pointing out to them, through the questions that you're asking them, through the process that you're leading them through, not letting them lead you through, and helping them to see this is how we can build a solution to your problem that you might not have ever, thought of before or thought of in this way. Oftentimes those testimonials are unnecessary.
Like a good debate. So I agree with you. I think what testimonials and case studies will do is remove friction. But sometimes there is no friction to be removed, so you can bypass this. I think when an institution, a company, when you have multiple stakeholders involved, when you have the finance decision maker, you're gonna work with them decision maker, the team that you might be involved with in the day-to-day. When there are multiple stakeholders like this, and you don't have the opportunity to really go deep into all the aspects of your deliverables and projects with each and every one of them, but they will do their research because you need their buy-in. I think this is where testimonials come in, and you're able to showcase that for people like them, you've been able to achieve results. But when there is no friction to remove, I agree with you. I think a good sales process removes a lot of the requirements for testimonials. So this is how you retain client, this is how you gain testimonial. Where would you say you find yourself the most challenged right now, Melisa? The reason I'm asking is, clearly you're doing lots of things very, very well. Multiple lead magnets. You're teaching consultants to generate leads, and you seem very good at generating leads. I like people who validate their concept by doing it themselves. Like we're all about podcasts, and I record 2 to 3 episodes per day. So I believe in what I do. Where would you say you find yourself stuck right now? So that consultants listening to us who might be stuck at the same point in their business, see how you think about that.
I'll answer that question, but I want to go back to something first about the testimonials, which is, I think also you can ask for the order, ask for the testimonial, but also do what you're doing, Guillaume, which is, this isn't a test, interviewing your clients on this type of a format in a podcast where you don't even call it a testimonial, but it becomes a testimonial of sorts because you're going through the case studies. And so that's another important way around this, which is not calling it a testimonial and getting that value and that case study and that real life ability to build a relationship with you and to see you in action is a great tool. So I just wanted to add on to what you had just said there. In terms of where am I stuck in my business right now, I am at a place of working on scaling. And so that is a place where a lot of consultants get stuck. Is that ability to, even though I'm an independent and I will always be independent, I do have team members, contractors who work with me. And I hit a point where I want to, where I've set a goal of increasing revenue and reducing the amount of time that I work. And so some of that I'm able to achieve that by adding some additional offers into my offer suite. and then also bringing on another team member who can do a lot of the work that I am fully capable of doing and kind of like, to be honest with you, some of the techie stuff, but really isn't the highest value of what I could be, focusing on in the business. So that's really where I'm at right now in terms of the next phase of the business.
Would you be comfortable sharing what you're exploring to achieve that scale? And with scaling, obviously, always comes lots of work, not only to scale, but also to deliver on the results of the scaling. But what you added was like reduce the amount of time that you spend on the business.
Right.
So like, how do you go about, fixing and managing that dichotomy?
Yeah, I found that it's a combination of like really thinking about it strategically. For example, well, let me just say this. It's a combination of thinking strategically and ripping off the Band-Aid. So the first piece of this is strategically, earlier this year, I realized my kids are getting older. I thought I would have more time. I actually have a lot less time as they get older. So I was completely wrong about that. And so I started realizing I've got less hours in the day for client facing time, for sales time. And so I started building out more programs that are group programs, right? So, for example, I did a lead generation sprint this fall and helped a group of consultants build out a predictable, repeatable lead generation process for themselves in a sprint format, which was really successful. And then I've moved some of those into one-on-one clients, and but I've reduced the number of spots for one-on-one. So from that, I'm able to increase pricing and also the value to those consultants, and then also adding a mastermind, so a group for consultants who have been more seasoned and have made a lot of the same mistakes I've made and want to get to the place where they've got a more sustainable business, where they're able to you set goals like I just described, making more money and working less time. The rip the Band-Aid. So that was the strategy that I set earlier this year and started putting all the pieces in place, and a lot of trial and error. I just launched that lead gen sprint and did put my whole heart and soul into it. But it was an experiment. I wanted to see, will this work? How will it work? Will I like it? Will it resonate with the market? It did. And so I put that into my queue of offers that that are now permanent. The other part of ripping is ripping off the Band-Aid. This summer, I took a leap of faith and I shut down my sales calendar for 2 months. And I had set a very, a really high revenue goal that was much higher than last year. So I had 2 months without any selling. And so this was a ripping off the Band-Aid. And what I found was I had been doing maybe 3 or 4 sales calls a day. So 3 days a week. So 9 to 12 sales calls a week to fill my client roster of one-on-one clients. And I shut it down. I told people, like, be ready. I'll open it back up on whatever, August 2nd. And people were waiting. They were almost like pick me to work with me. It was a complete shift because it was a shift in my mindset, and also because there was scarcity, right? I didn't have any ability to work with me, so people wanted it maybe a little bit more, or didn't take it for granted, let's say. And so I've really ratcheted down my sales calls as a result of that moving forward, just from that rip the Band-Aid experiment.
I like it a lot. Next 3 to 6 months, what's the big opportunity for you, Melisa? What are you looking forward to?
I am looking forward to some more time off. I've built my business. Listen, we're all here doing our own thing, not working in corporate because we want to have autonomy and flexibility. And so for me, I've built my offers and my calendar around taking off a big chunk of time over the holidays. And being able to start a little bit further into the new year and being rejuvenated and ready to help my clients. And that's what I love helping my clients to do as well. A lot of times for consultants, we think about selling kind of multi-year, project-based work. In a way, we're pseudo employees if it's our only clients. And while that can be really lucrative, it's also not very flexible a lot of the time. And so I find for consultants, oftentimes we'll do one or two of those and then start to like pop our head up and say, I wonder how I could do this differently. That gives me more flexibility. So that's so important when you're thinking about, as a consultant, what are the offers that you have, and what does it take to deliver them, and how can they be a combination if you want that kind of flexibility, from kind of short-term quick hit engagements, and then maybe a couple of pillar advisory clients that keep a good revenue run rate, but building out intentionally the way you want to live your life and work, and then matching up the way what you're offering to your clients, I find to be really important, and also a very effective strategy.
Melisa Liberman, ladies and gentlemen. Melisa, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
Yes. Well, first and foremost, I have a book. It's called Grow Your Consulting Business, the 14-step roadmap to grow a thriving consulting business, or make your consulting goals a reality. And you can download that on my website. So if you go to melisaliberman.com/book, there's a free PDF version of it. And it comes with a toolkit as well. So it puts those 14 steps. Not only can you read about them, and my book gives a lot of examples, so you can really understand what we're talking about with each of those steps. But I also provide a toolkit that goes with it, where you could put the work into action, so that it's not just about reading a book, but it's actually about making the progress that you want to make in your consulting business. So you can find that on my website.
Resources available on the website, guys. Go and check it out. Really a gold mine over there. We put all the links in the description. Melisa, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thank you for having me. It's been a fun conversation, Guillaume.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show, so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.